Hi good people, Titus here again to continue our camera system mini-series with part 7. In the last video we created a function to temporarily disable our camera system that gets called from a blueprint interface when shot. In this video we'll take a quick break from coding and implement some Niagara systems for smoke and sparks to implement into our camera when it gets disabled or destroyed. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into it. First thing I'm going to do is create a new folder. We'll call this _VFX. And for our Niagara system, we're going to be using a couple particle effects. So we're going to need some textures. I want to do a smoke Niagara system. So when the camera's destroyed, it'll play smoke. And I found this really cool smoke texture online. It's just any smoke texture, it's PNG will kind of work. This one's really, really good, so this will probably turn out pretty well. I couldn't find a good spark one that worked, so I had to make one and paint, and yeah, this is it here. Look, just gaze at it. It's beautiful. And just go ahead and ask me to draw you anything. I dare you. But anyways, I digress. So we're going to use these two textures and import them into our project. And then we have to create materials out of the textures. So we'll start with the smoke. So if we right click, we can create a material, call it m_smoke. And then from there, I am going to disconnect the node. And we're going to do some setup. So for this material, I want the blend mode to be translucent. And the shader model, I'm going to be unlit. I'm also going to make it view it as a square, so it's a little bit easier to see. And I'm going to make it two-sided. I'm going to get another node. I believe it's called particle color. There we go. And then I'm going to get two multiply nodes. So you can just hold M and click anywhere in your graph, and it'll add a multiply node. And then I'm going to plug in the RGB channels to the top one and the opacity channels into the bottom one. And then we can just plug in opacity into opacity and the actual RGB into the emissive color. And there we go. We have our smoke texture, or smoke material. We can save that, and then we'll dock that into our main view. So now that we have the material created, let's right click and create a Niagara system. I'm just going to use one of the basic templates. And I like to use the fountain. So I'll hit the plus sign and finish. I'll call it ns_smoke. All right, so here's our basic particle system. I don't like looking at it with the environment because it's kind of hard to see the detail. So you can go to your window and preview scene settings, and then under environment you can just uncheck that and then maybe bring it down in color so you get a good contrast so you can see the actual particle effect and if it's the desired effect you're looking for or not. So smoke typically doesn't fall down like this, so I'm probably just going to go ahead and delete gravity. That's just going to shoot up. For the initialized particles, I think I'm going to go between 1.4. I'm going to make them live a little bit longer, so maybe 3. And then for the sprite size, I'm going to go maybe a 20 on the min and a 40 on the max. So they're going to be a lot bigger. And this is moving way too quickly and shooting up, so I'm going to go to the velocity. And instead of 500 and 850, I'm probably going to do like 50 and maybe 100. So it's going to be much slower. Now, if the height isn't correct, you can technically increase the velocity to shoot it up a little bit higher, or you can go into the initialized particles and just make it live longer. And that way it can flow a little bit higher if it's not quite the right size. Now for the in the velocity section, there's a cone angle. I'm going to actually make the cone a little bit wider, so I'll maybe do 40 degrees. And that's already looking pretty good. Another thing you can try to do is mess with the scale. So under the particle state or the particle update, you hit the plus sign here. And scale sprite size, I believe it is. And this gives us an actual graph that we can actually modify here. So what we can do is we can right click and add a keyframe. And then this keyframe, I can maybe do it at a 0.2. I can make it a value of 1. And then at the end of the graph, instead of a value of 1, I can actually go to 2. So it's going to scale it a lot faster. So you can see the effect is a little more pronounced. So it's more billowy, more cloud. And there's a lot of settings here that you can kind of mess with to try to get different effects. So it's a very powerful effect system. I actually like it. And then for the sprite, we can go down to the bottom. And instead of the default little circle, we can look for our new material, which was m_smoke. We can click on that. And now you can see with that texture is just a much better quality texture. So your smoke effect looks really good. And just with that, we can actually throw this in the map. And just you can drag it anywhere. Hit play, and you can see if the smoke effect is something you're looking for. I don't quite like the color. I think I'm gonna maybe go with like a black. So we can go back into it, and under initialize, there's a color section. We can drag that down into the black. And now if we play, when our camera gets destroyed, we'll actually start this particle effect, and that looks pretty good. So I think we'll actually keep that. All right, the next one to work on is going to be our spark. So again, just right click, create a new Niagara system. We'll use a template. I'm going to use the same fountain, and we'll call it ns_spark. And we'll open that one up. All right, so for our sparks, there definitely is going to be gravity. I don't want that many, so I'm going to cut the spawn rate down to, very small, like 11. And then I think for the particle lifetime, I'm probably going to give them 3. I want them to live longer, actually shoot down. The initial velocity actually probably looks fine. I might mess with the gravity scale, so maybe to get them to shoot a little bit higher, maybe reduce gravity a bit. Kind of like that. And then maybe if the velocity is a little bit too high, you can drop the max velocity to 600. Something like that. And then we can go into our particle update, and you can do the same sprite scale. Scale sprite size. And then kind of the same trick where you can just right click, you create a key, and then at 0.2 we'll just make it a value of 1, and then at the end of the keyframe we can make that a 2. Another thing you can do too is on the keyframe you entered, you can right click and actually set the interpolation to auto, and it'll kind of span it out to get like a better variety in it. And let's add in my wonderful spark drawing. Which, did we create a material for that? We have not. So we can right click on the spark, create a material, call it m_spark, and then just like before, we will disconnect this, add a particle color, 2 multiply nodes, so hold M and click into the graph, RGB at the top, opacity at the bottom, and then looking back at our default settings, we're going to change the blend mode to translucent, the shading to unlit, and I'm going to make it two-sided. I'm going to view it as a square rather than a sphere. And then we'll just plug in opacity to opacity and emissive to emissive. And there's your beautiful, you know, you can probably make something better, but, you know, good enough for what we're using it for. We'll save that, go to our Spark Niagara system, and we will tell it to use the one we made. And if you're making them really small from far away, you know, it's probably not going to notice it, so it's fine. We'll go into the initialize particle, and I'm going to change the color. I'm going to try a blue with a little bit of white in it. And then let's drag this Niagara system out, and let's get a look and see how that's looking. I think the size is way too big, and the velocity is kind of shooting a little bit too high. So let's go back into here. To fix the size under initialize, it's 6 and 12. So for the min, I think I'm going to do like 0.2 and maybe 1. So make it like real small. And let's actually just see how that looks really quick. So you can hide a lot of imperfections by making it just really tiny. Although I can't even see it now. Yeah, that was too small. So let's go back and let's try a 1 and maybe a 3. Actually, I'm gonna try 0.5. Alright, so I can see it now. It's very subtle, and I don't want to like a huge effect, so that might be okay. Maybe I'll make it just a little bit bigger. Time to live is fine. I think it's the velocity is a little bit too high, so maybe I'll bump this down. And maybe with gravity, I'll increase gravity to a negative 550. Just minor little tweaks until you get the desired effect. All right, yeah, that looks okay. That's kind of what I'm going for. So okay, so now what we can do is we can delete our spark in our scene here, which I'll just maybe select here. And I guess I'll have to just hit the delete key and smoke. There we go. And we'll go into our blueprint for our camera system. And you would think, I think the best place to parent them or to make them a child of, it would be the mount, not necessarily the camera. So I think the way we'll destroy this camera is we'll just kind of delete the camera mesh entirely and all the components associated with it. And then we'll parent the Niagara systems to the mount because the mount's still going to be there, and then we'll just turn them on and off dynamically. So click on mount, hit add. You got Niagara particle systems there. You can call this smoke. And then on the right side, you can just select your smoke effect there. And you simply just want to turn auto activate off. Go back to the mount, add your Niagara system. We'll call it spark. And then we'll add the spark effect there. And then we'll just tell it to auto activate to be off. And now, we haven't set up the destroy code, but we did set up the disable code. So when you do the shoot code, where the camera actually gets shot, what you can do is simply drag this back a bit, and I think it's better if we do it after the Boolean. You can just get a reference to spark, and then do a set active, and then turn it on. Connect your execution pins up, and then near the end, after the delay, this out a bit. We'll get a reference to Spark again, drag off, and set active. This time we'll leave it to off. And that should be good enough to actually complete that code. So now when we shoot the thing, oops, we should see some sparks. Very subtle. And then when the camera gets back online, the sparks stop, and then it goes back to patrol mode. So yeah. It goes back down, there's the sparks. And then once it picks back up, the sparks will stop. So yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, people, I'm going to cut it there for now, but I hope you found informative value in this topic that you can implement in your own projects. If so, please consider leaving a like and a sub to help grow the channel. And in the next video, we'll cover a health system and destroy our camera system as well. So until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.